Captain Sarah Chun pressed the big red button on her control panel. The lucky brake shook and hummed as it jumped through space faster than light. This was their first time using the new FTL drive, and Sarah hoped it would work without blowing them up. "Jump complete," said James Morrison from the pilot's seat. Everyone called him Crash because he had landed badly too many times. "We should be in the Kepler 442 system now." Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked at her screens. She was the ship's scientist and the smartest person Sarah knew. "The computers say we're in the right place, but something is wrong. There are way too many ships here." Mike Rodriguez, their engineer, scratched his head. "Maybe we jumped into a shipping lane? Like a space highway?" Sarah looked out the front window. What she saw made her mouth drop open. They were floating in the middle of the biggest collection of alien spaceships anyone had ever seen. The ships were huge, covered in gold and silver decorations. They looked like floating palaces. "Oh no," Sarah said quietly. "I think we crashed a party." The Lucky Break was not an impressive ship. It used to carry cargo between Earth space stations. Sarah and her crew had bought it cheap and added the experimental FTL drive. Next to these alien ships, it looked like a rusty truck parked next to a fleet of luxury cars. Thousands of alien vessels surrounded them. Some ships were as big as cities. Others looked like giant flowers or metallic whales. Many had strange designs that hurt to look at. They all had one thing in common. They were positioned in perfect formations around a massive golden platform floating in space. On the platform, Sarah could see what looked like a ceremony. Millions of aliens watched as a huge creature with multiple arms placed a crown on another alien's head. The crown shot beams of light in all directions. "Captain," Yuki said in a scared voice, "I think we just interrupted an alien emperor's coronation." The communication system started beeping. Someone was trying to talk to them. Sarah looked at her crew. They all looked back at her with worried faces. "What do we do?" Crash asked. Mike wiped sweat from his forehead. "Maybe we should run?" "We can't run," Sarah said. "They'll think we're spies or attackers. And our FTL drive needs time to cool down." More beeping came from the radio. The alien ships around them started to move. They weren't attacking, but they were definitely paying attention to the small human ship. Sarah made a decision. She was good at making quick decisions. It's why she was the captain. She opened the communication channel. "Hello there," she said in her most casual voice. "Sorry about this, folks. Our navigation system is still buggy on these new drives. Mind if we just squeeze past you there?" Silence. Complete silence from thousands of alien ships. Sarah looked at her crew again. Yuki was staring at her like she was crazy. Crash was grinning. Mike was shaking his head. The radio crackled. A deep voice spoke in perfect English. "Unknown vessel, you have violated the sacred coronation space of Emperor Vexthul the Magnificent, ruler of the Zephyrian Galactic Kingdom. Identify yourself immediately." Sarah's heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice calm. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the exploration vessel Lucky Break. We're from Earth. And again, really sorry about the timing. We were just trying to find an empty system to refuel." "Earth?" the voice asked. There was confusion in it. "We have no records of this world or your species in our databases." Sarah realized she had two choices. She could tell the truth and probably get her crew killed for interrupting the biggest ceremony in alien history. Or she could lie and hope for the best. She chose option 3. She would tell the truth, but make it sound more impressive than it was. "We're a bit new to the galactic community," she said. "Still learning the proper protocols. On behalf of the Terran Federation, I apologize for our poor timing." There was no Terran Federation. Earth had one small space agency and a few mining stations. But the aliens didn't need to know that. You claim to represent a stellar government unknown to our archives, the voice said. This is highly irregular. Sarah could see movement on the ceremonial platform. The newly crowned emperor was looking their way. Even from this distance, she could tell he was huge and had way too many eyes. Look, Sarah said, we're clearly interrupting something important. We can leave if you want. Or we can just float here quietly until you're done. Whatever works for you. Her casual tone seemed to confuse the aliens even more. Sarah could hear multiple voices talking in the background of the radio signal. They were speaking in alien languages, but the voices sounded surprised and unsure. Crash leaned over and whispered, Captain, what's a Terran Federation? Something I just made up, Sarah whispered back. Roll with it. Dr. Tanaka was looking at her computer. Sarah, I'm picking up signals from hundreds of different species. This isn't just an emperor's coronation. This is like the United Nations, but for the entire galaxy. Great, Sarah said. We crashed the biggest political meeting in space history. The radio came alive again. This time, the voice was different. Deeper and more commanding. Small ship from Earth, this is Emperor Vexthal. Your timing is unusual, but your boldness is noted. Do you claim to represent your world in diplomatic matters? Sarah looked at her crew one more time. They all nodded. Even scared, they trusted her. We are an advanced diplomatic envoy, Sarah said. We came to observe the coronation and offer congratulations from Earth. Again, sorry, we're late. Hyperspace traffic was murder. There was another long pause. Then something unexpected happened. The Emperor laughed. It was a sound like rocks falling down a mountain, but it was definitely laughter. Advance envoy, the Emperor said. You arrive in the middle of our most sacred ceremony, in a ship that appears to be held together with metal tape, and you blame traffic. Either you are the bravest diplomats we have ever encountered, or you are completely insane. Possibly both, Sarah said honestly. The Emperor laughed again. You have diplomatic immunity for the duration of the coronation festivities. Do not make us regret this decision. Sarah smiled at her crew. They had just talked their way into the biggest alien gathering in history. Now they just had to figure out what to do next. The coronation ceremony continued around them. Sarah and her crew watched through their ship's windows as Emperor Vexthal received gifts from hundreds of alien species. Each gift came with a formal speech that lasted several minutes. The translations coming through their radio made very little sense. Captain, Dr. Tanaka said quietly, we need to talk about what happens next. Sarah called her crew to the ship's small meeting room. It was barely big enough for 4 people, but it was private. They sat around the metal table that served as both their dining area and conference room. Okay, Sarah said. Let's figure out what we've gotten ourselves into. Crash pulled up a display showing all the ships around them. There are over 10,000 vessels out there. I count at least 300 different ship designs. That means 300 different species, minimum. More than that, Yuki added, looking at her scientific readings. Some of those big ships are carrying representatives from multiple worlds. I'm detecting thousands of different biological signatures. Mike whistled. So we just crashed the biggest political meeting in galactic history. Cool. Sarah rubbed her temples. The question is, what do we do now? We told them we're diplomats from the Terran Federation. But there is no Terran Federation. There could be, Yuki said thoughtfully. I mean, Earth has different countries, but when aliens are involved, couldn't we speak for all humans? That's assuming anyone on Earth wants us to speak for them, Crash pointed out. We're just 4 people in a cargo ship with a homemade faster-than-light drive. Sarah stood up and paced around the small room. Here's the thing. We can't take back what we said. These aliens think we represent Earth's government. If we admit we lied, they might consider it an act of war. So we keep lying? Mike asked. We keep improvising, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. The ship's communication system beeped again. Sarah hurried back to the bridge to answer it. Captain Chun, came an alien voice. This is Ambassador Kelthera of the Regelian Trade Consortium. We request permission to come aboard your vessel for a formal introduction. Sarah's heart started beating fast again. An alien wanted to come onto their ship. A ship that was clearly not a proper diplomatic vessel. Of course, Ambassador, Sarah said. We would be honored. Fair warning, though. Our ship is designed for long-range exploration, so it's pretty basic inside. Understood. We appreciate your honesty about your vessel's purpose. Sarah muted the radio and called to her crew. Everyone, we have an alien diplomat coming aboard. Yuki, you know the most about aliens. You're our cultural expert now. Mike, clean up the engine room in case they want a tour. Crash, try to make the cockpit look professional. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle docked with their ship. The airlock opened and Ambassador Kelthera stepped through. Kelthera was humanoid, but clearly not human. She had blue skin, 4 arms, and eyes that could move independently of each other. She was wearing robes covered in complex patterns that seemed to shift when she moved. Welcome aboard the Lucky Break, Sarah said. Offering her hand to shake Kel, Tahara looked at the offered hand for a moment, then clasped it with 2 of her own hands. An interesting greeting custom. We appreciate the gesture of trust. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. Ambassador Kelthera, it's an honor to meet a representative of the Regelian people. We've studied your stellar cartography techniques and find them fascinating. Kelthera's eyes widened. You know of our cartography? Most species consider it too complex to understand. Yuki had been reading about different alien species during the flight. She was guessing, but it seemed to work. Earth values knowledge sharing between civilizations. We believe all species have something unique to offer. How refreshing, Kelthera said. Most species are only interested in what they can take from others. Sarah led the ambassador on a tour of their small ship. She pointed out the modified FTL drive, which Mike had covered with extra panels to make it look more official. She showed off their computer systems, which were actually pretty advanced by human standards. Your technology is interesting, Kelthera noted. It appears to be based on completely different principles than ours. How long has Earth been using faster-than-light travel? We're still in the early stages, Sarah said honestly. This is actually our first long-range mission. And yet you chose to attend the coronation of the Galactic Emperor for your first diplomatic contact? That shows remarkable confidence. Sarah and her crew exchanged glances. They were accidentally making Earth sound much braver than it actually was. Earth believes in making strong first impressions, Sarah said. Kelthera spent an hour aboard their ship, asking questions about Earth's government, technology, and culture. Sarah, Yuki, and the others answered as honestly as they could without revealing how small and unprepared Earth really was. When Kelthera mentioned trade opportunities, Crash accidentally got excited about coffee. He offered the ambassador a cup from their emergency supplies. Kel Tahara took one sip and her eyes went wide. This beverage is extraordinary. What do you call it? Coffee, Crash said. It's pretty common on Earth. We drink it every day. Every day? Kelthera seemed amazed. This would be considered a luxury stimulant on most worlds. The complexity of flavors is remarkable. Mike leaned over to Sarah and whispered, I think we just accidentally discovered our first export. Before leaving, Kelthera asked about Earth's military capabilities. Sarah was ready for this question. Earth maintains defensive forces, she said carefully. We prefer peaceful solutions, but we're prepared to protect ourselves if necessary. A wise policy. Many species claim to be peaceful, but have no means to enforce that peace. Others claim to be warriors, but have no understanding of restraint. Earth seems to understand both concepts. After Kelthra left, Sarah's crew sat in stunned silence. Did we just accidentally convince an alien diplomat that Earth is a major galactic power? Crash asked. I think so, Yuki said. She seemed impressed by everything. Even our coffee. Mike grinned. Wait until she finds out what chocolate is. Sarah looked out the window at the thousands of alien ships around them. We're in way over our heads. But so far, being honest about being new to galactic politics seems to be working in our favor. What's our next move? Yuki asked. Sarah thought for a moment. We keep doing what we're doing. We're explorers who got lucky and stumbled into the biggest diplomatic event in history. We represent Earth as best we can, and we try not to start any wars. That's your plan? Mike asked. Wing it? Sarah smiled. Mike, winging it got us this far. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? As if in answer to her question, the radio crackled to life again. Captain Chun, this is Admiral Throk of the Krethiri War Fleet. We wish to discuss Earth's military doctrine with you. Sarah's smile faded. I think I just found out what the worst thing was. Admiral Throk arrived 2 hours later. Unlike Ambassador Kelthra, he didn't come alone. 6 heavily armed Krethiri soldiers accompanied him. They were tall, covered in what looked like natural armor plating, and had way too many teeth. Sarah met them at the airlock with her crew behind her. She tried to look confident while secretly wondering if this was how her diplomatic career would end. Admiral Throk, Sarah said, extending her hand. Welcome aboard. Throk looked at her hand but didn't take it. Instead, he hit his chest with his fist and made a sound like rocks grinding together. Sarah quickly copied the gesture, hitting her own chest. Throk's soldiers seemed surprised. One of them spoke to the Admiral in their own language. Throk replied, then turned to Sarah. You know the warrior's greeting, he said. His voice sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. Interesting. Most diplomatic species refuse to acknowledge martial customs. Earth respects all cultures, Sarah said, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. We believe understanding leads to peace. Peace through strength, Throk agreed. Tell me, Captain Chun, how does Earth maintain its defensive forces? Sarah thought quickly. She couldn't lie about having massive space fleets, because they obviously didn't have any. But she could tell the truth in a way that sounded impressive. Earth's defense strategy is based on adaptability and innovation, she said. We prefer to avoid conflicts, but when we must fight, we fight smart. Give me an example, Throk demanded. Mike stepped forward. Admiral, may I? Sarah nodded, wondering what their engineer was planning. On Earth, we have a saying, Mike said. If you can't fix it with a hammer, you're not using a big enough hammer. He grinned. But we also know that sometimes you need a scalpel instead of a hammer. The trick is knowing which tool to use. Throk tilted his head. You speak of weapons as tools. Everything is a tool, Mike continued. A hammer can build a house or break down a door. Fire can cook food or destroy enemies. Water can sustain life or flood cities. Earth's military doctrine is about using the right tool for the right job. Dr. Tanaka joined the conversation. We found that understanding your enemy is more important than overpowering them. If you know how they think, you can predict how they'll act. And if you can predict their actions, Crash added, you can always be one step ahead. Throk's soldiers were listening carefully. One of them spoke to the Admiral again. This time, the conversation was longer and more intense. My warriors are impressed, Throk finally said. They say your words show wisdom gained through experience. How many wars has Earth fought? Sarah's heart sank. Earth had fought plenty of wars, but none in space. And none against aliens. But before she could answer, Yuki spoke up. Admiral, Earth has a saying. A good general studies every battle ever fought. A great general fights only the battles he must. She paused. We prefer to learn from the mistakes of others, rather than make our own. It wasn't really answering the question, but it sounded wise. Throke nodded approvingly. You study war to avoid war. This is the mark of a truly strong species. He looked around the ship. Show me your weapon systems. Sarah froze. They didn't have weapon systems. The Lucky Break was a cargo ship with an experimental FTL drive. The most dangerous thing on board was Mike's toolkit. Admiral, she said carefully, this is an exploration vessel. We prefer to carry scientific equipment rather than weapons. Throke's expression darkened. You travel unarmed through unknown space? Not unarmed, Mike said quickly. Differently armed. He led the group to the engine room, where the FTL drive took up most of the space. The drive was a maze of copper coils, quantum processors, and energy conduits. It hummed with power and occasionally sparked. This is our primary system, Mike said, patting the drive housing. It bends space-time to move us faster than light. Throke stared at the machine. You carry a space-time manipulation device? It's not just for travel, Crash added, picking up on Mike's plan. The same technology that moves us through space can create gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, and localized space warping. None of that was true. Their FTL drive could only make them go fast. But Throke didn't know that. You weaponize faster than light technology, one of the soldiers said. He sounded worried. Only if necessary, Sarah said. We prefer to use it for exploration. Throke walked around the FTL drive, examining it carefully. This design is completely unknown to us. How long did it take Earth to develop this technology? Several decades of research, Yuki said honestly. That part was true. Humans have been working on FTL travel for a long time. And every ship in your fleet carries one of these devices? Sarah realized they were accidentally making Earth sound like it had a fleet of ships carrying weaponized FTL drives. That was terrifying even to her. Earth believes in standardizing technology, she said. It makes maintenance easier. After the tour, Admiral Throke gathered his soldiers for a private conversation. Sarah and her crew waited nervously in the meeting room. I think we just accidentally convinced a military admiral that Earth has a fleet of ships carrying space-time weapons. Crash whispered. That's not entirely a bad thing, Mike pointed out. Better to be feared than ignored. Unless they decide we're too dangerous to exist, Yuki added. Throke returned to them 20 minutes later. Captain Chun, the Krathari War Fleet would be honored to establish military cooperation with Earth. What kind of cooperation? Sarah asked carefully. Training exchanges. Technology sharing. Joint defense agreements. Throke paused. We would also like to purchase some of that beverage your engineer offered us earlier. Coffee? Sarah asked, confused. We analyzed the sample. It's a natural combat stimulant with no negative side effects. Our warriors would benefit greatly from such a substance. Sarah looked at her crew. They were accidentally becoming arms dealers, and their main export was coffee. We'd be happy to discuss trade agreements, she said. But Earth prefers to start with peaceful exchanges before moving to military cooperation. Wise. A species that rushes into military alliances usually has something to hide. Throke hit his chest again. Earth has our respect, Captain Chun. After Throke and his soldiers left, Sarah collapsed into her chair. We just sold coffee to alien warriors and convinced them we have weaponized FTL drives, she said. What's next? The radio crackled. Captain Chun, this is Counselor Zethron of the Vegan Collective. We understand Earth has developed advanced space-time manipulation technology. We wish to discuss a non-aggression treaty immediately. Crash grinned. I think word is spreading, Captain. Yuki checked her computers. I'm detecting 15 more ships requesting communication with us. Mike laughed. Sarah, I think we accidentally made Earth famous. Sarah looked out at the alien fleet surrounding them. Ships that had been ignoring the small human vessel were now turning to face them. Some were moving closer. Famous might be an understatement, she said. I think we just became the most interesting humans in the galaxy. Is that good or bad? Crash asked. I guess we'll find out, Sarah replied, watching as more alien ships approached their position. But one thing's for sure, we can't go back to being nobody now. The radio continued to beep with incoming communication requests. Earth had gone from unknown to potentially dangerous in the span of a few hours. And Sarah wasn't sure if that was the best thing that ever happened to humanity, or the worst. The next few hours turned into a diplomatic nightmare. Sarah's communication system never stopped beeping. Every few minutes, another alien species wanted to talk to the humans. Some wanted to trade. Some wanted military alliances. Others wanted to make sure Earth wouldn't attack them. Captain, Yuki said. Looking stressed, I've got 17 species requesting meetings. 8 offering tribute, and 3 asking if we're planning to conquer the galaxy. Conquer the galaxy? Sarah asked. How did they get that idea? Probably from Admiral Throke, Mike suggested. Military types like to talk. Crash looked up from his pilot controls. Sarah, we've got a bigger problem. Emperor Vextil wants to see you personally. On his ship. In 1 hour. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The Emperor wants a private meeting? That's what his message says. He's sending a shuttle to pick you up. Sarah called her crew together for another emergency meeting. They squeezed into the small conference room, which was starting to feel like a war bunker. Okay, Sarah said. The most powerful being in the galaxy wants to meet with me personally. Any ideas on how not to mess this up? Don't tell him Earth is actually just one planet with no space fleet. Crash suggested. Don't mention that our government doesn't know we exist. Mike added. And definitely don't let him know that our FDL drive is held together with space duct tape and hope. Yuki finished. Sarah rubbed her face with her hands. So basically, keep lying. Not lying, Yuki corrected. Just not volunteering information that might cause galactic incidents. An hour later, Sarah found herself on the Emperor's flagship. The ship was enormous, like a floating city made of gold and crystal. Everywhere she looked, she saw aliens bowing to her. Apparently, word had spread that she represented a mysterious, powerful species. Emperor Vexthal received her in a throne room the size of a football field. The Emperor himself was 12 feet tall, with multiple arms, tentacles instead of legs, and eyes that glowed purple. His crown was floating above his head, held there by some kind of energy field. Captain Chun of Earth, the Emperor said in a voice that shook the floor. You have created quite a stir among our people. Your Majesty, Sarah said, bowing slightly. She wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do, but it seemed polite. We didn't mean to disrupt your celebration. Disrupt? The Emperor's laugh sounded like a thunderstorm. My dear Captain, you have made this coronation memorable in ways I never expected. The Emperor gestured for Sarah to approach his throne. As she walked across the massive room, he continued speaking. In the past 6 hours, I have received reports that Earth possesses weaponized space-time technology, commands a fleet of advanced exploration vessels, and produces combat stimulants so effective that the Krathri are offering alliance terms. Sarah tried to keep her expression neutral. Earth has various capabilities. Indeed. But what interests me most is your species' approach to diplomacy. You arrive unannounced at the most sacred ceremony in galactic history. Admit it was an accident. And then proceed to impress every military and trade representative present. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. Tell me, Captain Chun, is this confidence or complete insanity? Sarah decided to be honest. Honestly, Your Majesty? Probably both. The Emperor stared at her for a long moment. Then he burst into laughter that made the crystals in the room ring like bells. Wonderful, he said. Most diplomats spend hours telling me what they think I want to hear. You simply tell me the truth. Sarah relaxed slightly. Being honest seemed to be working. Your Majesty, may I ask you something? Of course. How did humanity go from unknown to apparently terrifying in the span of one afternoon? The Emperor's expression became more serious. Captain, most species that develop space travel follow predictable patterns. They explore cautiously, make contact slowly, and join galactic society gradually. They show us their weaknesses before they reveal their strengths. He stood up from his throne, towering over Sarah. Earth did the opposite. You appeared suddenly, demonstrated advanced technology, showed no fear of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and treated the entire situation as a minor inconvenience. But we're just explorers, Sarah said. We don't even have a proper government. You say that like it's a weakness, the Emperor replied. A species confident enough to send explorers across the galaxy without government oversight suggests a level of individual capability that most civilizations never achieve. Sarah realized she was accidentally making humanity sound even more impressive by trying to downplay their abilities. The Emperor walked to a large window showing the fleet of ships outside. Tell me about your world, Captain. What is Earth like? Sarah thought about how to describe Earth without making it sound boring. Then she decided to just tell the truth and let the Emperor draw his own conclusions. Earth is complicated, she said. We have over 7 billion people divided into nearly 200 countries. We argue about everything. We fought wars over land, resources, ideas, and sometimes just because we didn't like each other. A warrior species, the Emperor noted. Sort of. But we also create art, music, and literature. We explore our oceans and climb our mountains just to see what's there. We keep dangerous animals as pets and jump out of perfectly good aircraft for fun. The Emperor turned to stare at her. You jump out of aircraft? Why? Because it's exciting, Sarah said with a shrug. You find falling through the air exciting? Some people do. We call it skydiving. Others prefer racing vehicles at high speed, or swimming with predatory fish, or climbing frozen waterfalls. The Emperor's multiple eyes were all focused on her now. Your species voluntarily participates in dangerous activities for entertainment. Pretty much. We have something called extreme sports. The whole point is to do scary things safely. Fascinating. And your governments allow this? Allow it? Some of them sponsor it. We have competitions to see who can do the most dangerous things the best. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Captain Chun, I am beginning to understand why your species feels comfortable exploring unknown space without military escort. We're curious, Sarah said simply. We like to see what's out there, even if it might be dangerous. Especially if it might be dangerous. That's usually where the most interesting discoveries are. The Emperor returned to his throne. I have made a decision, Captain Chun. Earth will be granted full membership in the Galactic Kingdom as an autonomous ally. Sarah's eyes widened. Your Majesty, that's very generous, but I'm not sure I have the authority to accept on behalf of my entire planet. Then you will return to Earth and inform them of their new status. I am also assigning a permanent communication relay to your system so we can maintain diplomatic contact. What if Earth's leaders don't want to join? The Emperor smiled, showing rows of teeth that looked like crystals. Captain, any species that produces individuals like you and your crew is exactly the kind of ally the galaxy needs. Your leaders will agree. Sarah hoped he was right. She was pretty sure she was about to give Earth's politicians the biggest surprise in human history. One more thing, the Emperor added. I'm curious about this coffee substance your engineer mentioned. Several species have expressed interest in trade agreements. Sarah grinned. Your Majesty, if you think coffee is interesting, wait until you hear about chocolate. The Emperor's eyes lit up with interest, and Sarah realized she had just accidentally created Earth's first export market. She was beginning to understand that humans had a talent for turning simple things into galactic incidents. Sarah returned to the lucky break with her head spinning. In the space of one conversation, Earth had become a full member of galactic civilization, gained a permanent communication relay, and accidentally started exporting coffee and chocolate to alien species. Her crew was waiting anxiously in the main cabin. So, Crash asked, are we in trouble or are we heroes? Both, Sarah said, collapsing into her chair. Definitely both. She explained everything that had happened with the Emperor. When she finished, her crew sat in stunned silence. We're galactic citizens now, Yuki asked. Apparently, the Emperor is sending a communication relay to Earth so the government can talk directly to alien leaders. Mike whistled. The politicians back home are going to lose their minds. That's not even the best part, Sarah continued. 3 different alien species want to establish trade agreements for coffee. And when I mentioned chocolate, the Emperor's eyes literally started glowing. So we accidentally turned Earth into a galactic power and a luxury food supplier, Crash summarized. Not bad for a day's work. The ship's communication system beeped again. Sarah groaned, expecting another diplomatic request. Instead, it was a message from Emperor Vexthal. Captain Chun, the coronation festivities are concluding. We have prepared departure gifts for Earth's diplomatic mission. Please accept them as a gesture of friendship between our peoples. Through the windows, they could see a small fleet of alien ships approaching. Each ship was carrying containers marked with Earth's newly assigned diplomatic symbols. What kind of gifts? Yuki wondered. The answer came quickly. The alien ships transferred cases of advanced technology to the lucky break. Star charts covering thousands of light years. Medical equipment that could cure diseases Earth had never heard of. Communication devices that worked instantly across galactic distances. But the most important gift was a small device that looked like a crystal cube. When activated, it projected a 3-dimensional map of the entire galaxy, showing trade routes, diplomatic boundaries, and the locations of major civilizations. Your Majesty, Sarah said over the radio, these gifts are incredibly generous. But I have to ask, what does Earth need to do to maintain our new status? Simply be yourselves, Captain Chun. The galaxy has grown stagnant. We need species that think differently, act boldly, and unafraid to try new things. Earth appears to excel in all 3 areas. Sarah looked at her crew. They had stumbled into galactic politics by accident and succeeded through a combination of luck, honesty, and pure human stubbornness. We should probably head home, she said. Earth's government needs to know what happened here. Agreed, the Emperor responded. But before you depart, the gathered species have requested a formal farewell ceremony. It would be considered an insult to leave without acknowledging their respects. Sarah sighed. One more diplomatic event to survive. An hour later, the lucky break was positioned in the center of the alien fleet. Thousands of ships arranged themselves in perfect formation around the small human vessel. Representatives from hundreds of species transmitted formal goodbye messages. the Regalian Trade Consortium promised to send merchants to Earth as soon as the communication relay was established. The HFY War fleet offered military training exchanges. The vegan collective sent a treaty guaranteeing Earth's protection in exchange for regular coffee shipments. Even species that hadn't talked to the humans directly sent messages. Apparently, news of Earth's casual attitude toward danger and advanced technology had spread throughout the entire gathering. "This is incredible," Yuki said, monitoring all the communications. "We're getting treaty offers, trade agreements, and military alliances from species we've never even met. And all because we were too stubborn to admit we were lost." Mike added. Emperor Vextul's voice came over the radio one final time. "Captain Chun, safe travels to Earth. We look forward to long and productive relations between our peoples." "Thank you, Your Majesty. It's been educational." The Emperor laughed. "Indeed. Oh, and Captain? When you return to Earth, please remember to tell your leaders that the galaxy is watching them now. Not with suspicion, but with hope. We need more species like humanity." Sarah fired up the FTL drive. Around them, thousands of alien ships moved into ceremonial formation. As the Lucky Break prepared to jump to light speed, every ship in the fleet flashed their lights in sequence, creating a wave of illumination that rolled across the entire gathering. "They're giving us honors," Crash said, amazed. "Full military honors. For a cargo ship with a jury-rigged FTL drive and a crew that makes up diplomacy as they go," Sarah added. The jump to FTL engaged smoothly. One moment they were surrounded by the largest gathering of alien ships in galactic history. The next moment, they were alone in empty space, racing toward Earth at impossible speeds. "So," Mike said after a few minutes of silence, "what exactly are we going to tell people when we get home?" Sarah thought about it. They had left Earth as unknown explorers testing an experimental faster-than-light drive. They were returning as accidental diplomats who had made humanity a galactic power. "We'd tell them the truth," she decided. "We got lost, crashed a party, and accidentally convinced the entire galaxy that humans are fearless explorers who treat cosmic dangers like minor inconveniences, which, to be fair, is kind of accurate," Yuki pointed out. "True, we did handle meeting thousands of alien species pretty casually." Crash grinned. "So what's our next mission, Captain?" Sarah looked at the star charts the aliens had given them. They showed thousands of unexplored systems, countless alien civilizations, and trade routes spanning the entire galaxy. "Well," she said, "someone needs to establish those trade agreements." And the Emperor specifically asked for chocolate samples. "Plus, I think Earth's government is going to want a lot more information about our new galactic neighbors." "You're saying we should go back out there?" Mike asked. "I'm saying we accidentally became Earth's first interstellar diplomatic team. We might as well get good at it." The Lucky Break continued its journey toward Earth, carrying gifts from alien civilizations and news that would change human history forever. Behind them, thousands of alien ships dispersed to carry word throughout the galaxy. Humanity had joined galactic civilization, and they had done it in the most human way possible. They had shown up late, admitted they didn't know what they were doing, been completely honest about their limitations, and somehow convinced everyone that this made them incredibly dangerous and worthy of respect. As Crash had said earlier, it was very human behavior. The galaxy was about to discover that this was exactly why they needed humans around. Sarah settled back in her captain's chair and smiled. They had left Earth as explorers and were returning as diplomats. Their next adventure would probably be even more chaotic. She couldn't wait.